Falling in Reverse is a rock band that was birthed after the departure of vocalist Ronnie Radke from the group Escape the Fate. Falling in Reverse and Ronnie Radke now have gold and platinum certifications and have major airplay on satellite and FM radio. That was the nice description of how the band came to be, and I'm sure the version most Falling in Reverse fans would prefer to tell. The delusional fans who support everything he says regardless of how awful it gets, and the music industry who refuses to call out the terrible behavior the voice of this band is. Hate to break it to the MySpace scene kids who refuse to grow up, but reality is a bit less positive.
What is going on? The fuck is that?
Of course you have feminism in your bio. Of course you get it wrong. You left this part out. The part where I sued them for millions of dollars and won.
I'm not speaking for all women, but I can go ahead and confidently say that any normal woman does not want to be called cis woman.
Reality can be a bit brutal when explained with facts. Back in the late 2000s, when Ronnie Radke was the singer of Escape the Fate, he was involved at the scene of a fatal shooting of an 18-year-old and then was incarcerated for violating his parole from previous charges. Radke spent several years behind bars, and during that time, the seeds of Falling in Reverse were born. Yep, Falling in Reverse is a prison baby, which is awful, sickening, and truly terrible and unfortunate even from the very beginning. Both prison baby situations and Falling in Reverse. When wrapping up the prison sentence, Radke formed From Behind These Walls, which would be later named Falling in Reverse. A demo was made, and after several lineup changes, some of which due to members having issues working with Radke, imagine, Falling in Reverse, featuring Jackie Vincent, Derek Jones, and Ronnie Radke, put to work on the debut album, The Drug in Me Is You. The songs on this album were written while Radke was still incarcerated and describes the writings as a breakup record from the previous band Escape the Fate. Radke said, "I would think all day, for days and days, about what people would want to hear. I would dissect my old album and read all the fan letters and the reasons why they love my band and why they listen to it. And I wrote about that, but in different ways. I don't know why these kids love the tragedies that I write about. I guess they can relate to it." This album, released in 2011, received mixed reviews, boy is that putting it nicely, and was spearheaded by the singles regarding the antics of the nearly free Ronnie Radke. It's at this point that trashcore would gain a new voice. I've called several scene bands trashcore before, but regardless of what you think of Falling in Reverse now, as more recent music is different than the debut, it's the debut, The Drug in Me Is You, that is absolute trash from conception to finished production. This is embarrassing. The Drug in Me and You was eventually certified gold in 2019, shortly after which a tour to celebrate this feat was announced. The Drug in Me is Gold tour featuring Escape the Fate, oddly enough. Then pandemic happened. Make whatever jokes you want about that in the comments, because I'm sure there's gold in that cause and effect also. As the years have gone on, YouTube has greatly changed, and I cannot play recordings of uncut clips to prove my point of the music the same way I used to. Also, it gives more possibility of someone getting their precious feelings hurt and trying to take this video down. Yep, Ronnie Radke has done that. Radke actually snitched to YouTube that someone posted his clips after he gave permission publicly. Sweet mercy, that is a sensitive little man if I've ever seen one. So instead of using copyrighted clips, I'm going to do something a bit different this time. The audio and video you see on this Regretting the Face tattoos is all from cell phones from the crowd of live shows uploaded and used with permission. As for the album, I'm going to show you my original reaction when I sat down and listened to The Drug in Me Is You from beginning to end, track by track. That's the second worst way I can possibly use my time. The first would be dressing up as a music critic and mocking that critic, thinking that's a way of tricking teenage fans and MySpace rejects to support me. Yeah, that happened too. Do you think whoever took those photos had nuclear secondhand embarrassment for Radke having a full breakdown over Fantano not liking his music? Ugh. The Drug in Me Is You is a trashcore foundation with some of the worst music to infect the scene imaginable, but I'll get to that in a bit later. This is an album and band musician? Falling in Reverse has been requested many times to be covered, so let's start this experience in a new way and go track by track so I can explain why The Drug in Me Is You is worth regretting. The album starts with Raised by Wolves. It's not subtle about the escape the fate situation and him feeling how he spilt blood for them and he was let down, but he won't back down, and yeah, you get it. This was a single from the album. It also opens the album about how he's been let down and how he's disregarding those who have abandoned him. It was always me. Also, the line, mistakes to the state is when you don't pay your taxes on time, not miss your court hearing for serious felonies and violate parole for past crimes. Ronnie is really trying to come out of the gate with some energy. He's putting in efforts. The problem is this sounded outdated even for MySpace era standards. Remind you, this was 2011, well after the MySpace scene was actually important. The guitar track really stands out at times in the mixing to the point that Ronnie sounds muddied in the mix. I think that might be to emphasize the positives like a guitarist and hide the negatives like bad synths and whining and everything else. Then Tragic Magic kicks in, and it sounds like a bad Simple Plan B-side with a lame riff and melody. The piano melody sounds like it was plucked from a loop studio. Hearing attempted short millennial whoops from Radke is definitely not what I expected from a tough guy, but here it is. When the la-las come in, I realize he's not the lyricist he would later become a decade from this point. Just the spacing and inflection from his voice and how he breathes and sings to stretch over the melody and catchy is awful. It's like he can't think of anything else to write, so he has to justify lyrics and stretch everything out to the rhythm. Then more la-las started screaming in and I lost my mind. Then the breakdown came and I think I almost peed a little from laughing. Cannibal Corpse, eat your heart out. This is what brutal death screaming sounds like. The title track is the moneymaker. I mean that in what is sold Falling in Reverse to all the teens at Warped Tour and still holds up for those same people who still act like teenage Warped Tour kids. That sounds like a mean joke, but I assure you that is definitely the core audience for Falling in Reverse. See, this is what I'm getting at when I made fun of the previous songwriting. This song, there's a lot more lyrics written and you can understand the thought process. The problem is Radke sounds 1,000 times worse. He cannot hold notes and sounds flat every single song. Nice bass riff. I mean, the guitar even has some range, but even if Radke is a bit low in the mix by design, he sounds straight up atrocious. Also, the repetition gets old really quick. Being high on misery, The Drug in Me Is You. The Drug in Me right now is about to be etc. after listening to this, but I'll get there eventually. This is by far the best track so far in this experience, and even then, it still sounds terrible and I'll never come back to it. Kids screaming into a microphone, awful. Except he's a grown adult at this point and has served time, so you'd think he'd sound a bit more mature. Nope. I'm Not a Vampire kicks in. I was warned about this one oddly enough, and now I get it. This song is a straight up joke. Hearing the I can lure any woman line paired with the accusations that have been charged at Radke really makes sense, unfortunately. The hide your daughters line makes it even worse. This guy is advertising he's a creep. I mean, honest advertising? I don't know. He also added a straight up puke sound effect in the track, talking about pregnant women. This is so bad. This is what Twitter fanboys eat up. Radke puke. Not a bad guitar solo. Again, too bad Radke had to barf all over it. Literally, from the sounds of it, he barfed all over this track. He also sang he's going straight to hell. Again, honest advertising? The song is paced better, but Radke also sounds awful and he's comparing himself to a vampire and zombie preying on women, and comparing himself to a pregnant woman doesn't make me relate to him. Not sure how people connect with a felon who repeatedly threatens people, but there it is. First line did me in. I wanted to be done. Whiny garbage, straight millennial whoops, and this guy wrote this in prison. His cellmate must have hated him something fierce. It's smut rock after a minute or so. Him whining about good girls falling in love with him really inspired incels in the scene for years to come. Everything about this is straight up cringe. It's almost Insane Clown Posse lyrics if Insane Clown Posse was trying to be serious. I mean, that makes sense. He's Ronald the Clown. Guitar work straight out of the 80s. Doesn't do much when you write some filthy Valentine level lyrics and expect to be taken seriously as an artist. And that's the problem. He expects to be taken seriously and writes hot garbage like this to impress 14-year-olds. And that was in 2011. He then says he has a disease at the end. Yeah, I feel like that wasn't part of the song as it was just his thoughts coming out because he says it so much. Me describing it as a disease is also the extremely tame and polite definition. I'm a sucker for a steady bass riff and something unique to open. I'm also a sucker for hoping this would be good. His screaming about calling a girl and she better be alone and threatening her. Yeah, I feel like this is the most honest song of Radke's life. When it gets to him trying to speed up his delivery, it's straight up awful. Like he's reading off cue cards to get the lines right and it's just flat and sounds terrible. He tells the girl to talk to the cops saying she fell. It makes me realize that this was not actually a real story. I hope not. I just don't understand how so many people defend music like this from someone who has threatened so many people with violence and has acted out on it before. Guitar track is boring. Radke mumbles some of his delivery when he gets mad right before the solo. I hate this song. It's some whiny, I'm misunderstood, I'm the nice guy rock. Incel rock. Domestic abuse rock. That's this track. Don't Mess with a Ouija Board is the definitive point of Radke's forced projection and rough singing. When he sings, he's flat whiny. When he's screaming, he's doing it from breathing out and trying to sound loud, which makes him sound worse. Hearing him scream the word better days is embarrassing. I don't know how else to say it. And the line about him pouring his heart out on stage did not age well considering he leaves shows early all the time and complains about crowds not being hyped up for this trash. Then the speed change comes in and I realize another issue. He's performing metal. He doesn't understand the style, and this is fake anger, and he doesn't have any inflection or sincerity on this track. It's an attempt at a metal song without any passion behind it. The delivery of Don't Mess with Ouija Boards makes him sound like a dork, and the writing has become scatterbrained, like most of the music. Also, if a spirit knew about this, the Ouija board would light itself on fire just to stop hearing Radke whine. Sink or Swim continues the lyric stretching and singing the last word elongated, and it's grating. It's nails on a chalkboard. Then he goes into pretend metalcore voice when singing about paying the price for betrayal. We get it. You are the victim, Ronnie. You deserve respect. Go tweet about it. It's the start of the second verse where his voice straight up breaks on the worst notes, and I think that's when I gave up on this one. The back and forth screaming, the synth work, the tracking, it's all hot garbage. The writing doesn't even make sense. He's singing about betrayal and saving himself and others and then wanting to be saved and then saying goodbye. He's a kid that can't focus. Listen to this song and hear him scream, I bid farewell. That's it. That's all you need. Again, he sounds like a dork thinking he's cool performing like a metal singer. Sink or Swim sounds to me like it needs to be flushed. This song is a turd. Then the circus music kicks in and it's Ronald the Clown again. See? Told ya. Then he complains about not needing friends. Could have fooled me. This is what he wrote about in prison. Being betrayed and stabbed in the back to circus music? The line, you left my heart black and blue, might be the softest thing I've heard in a while. Sounds like something on a Hallmark Christmas movie. Pathetic. What a clown. The writing is more passive-aggressive stuff as it goes on. I won't be at your funeral stuff. Tons of repetition in the track also. Guitars are obnoxious, stretched out lyrics. I hate this, and it's not even the most offensive song. The song is 4.5 minutes, and it could have been done in 3 if they hadn't done the refrain and Ronnie didn't need to go angry and sing about how he's not a saint. More honesty. Goodbye Graceful is Radke's attempt at growling his vocals and trying to give that anger. He's really bad at it. It's like Scruff McGruff singing about the gates of hell. Maybe Scruff should have met Ronnie as a kid and straightened him out. The lyrics are hilariously bad. The man has terrible delivery. It all sounds forced and it's mixed like compressed trash. How is this supposed to be the more serious redemption song and it also sounds like Radke at his most fake? Oh, I guess that does make sense. Never mind. The guitar playing would be fine, but the mixing and leveling makes it sound muted and rough. When it got to the death metal growl, I started getting delirious. I didn't think it could get this lame, but here we are. Also, he actually writes an attempt at an apology in this song. For those who think it's never happened, I mean, here's a vague, generalized one. Step by step, he's proving he's a human. Too bad it's barked out like a growling dog. Not a scary dog either. He's more like a Bichon. I traveled many miles to get away. I don't think it counts if the state is forcing you to prison, but yeah, you traveled, you did get away. The opening 2 lines are straight out of a Hallmark movie. It's the opening of I was born out west on the coldest day by only my daddy. Oh, it's awful. The I was wrongfully accused part is interesting. Yikes. Boy, is that a statement to make, sir. He sings about being loved by many and still being lonely. It's because you did awful things and only care about yourself, sir. More passive-aggressive stuff with a you're just jealous and wish you could be me. Wow, not a chance. The song has more creative ideas and songwriting and speed changes. This track actually does have more effect across the board, but it's still obnoxious. That's the problem. I can't take this seriously about your hard upbringing, and then you going do. As the album comes to a close, it hits me. All of the drug in me is you is from a detached person. I don't mean that as someone in prison, I mean that as detached from reality. He does not understand other people and can only understand his own agony and getting attention and endless praise. Looking back on this album, I'm left with a few overall thoughts. The first one being this album is the soundtrack of ADHD. Track segments with blunt transitions, scatterbrain lyrics, any message or rhythm is heard almost at complete random. Second, the writing structure to extend syllables on each line for a rhyming scheme becomes ear-grating. It's unnecessarily extended flat singing or screaming just to stretch the time, instead of writing better lyrics to match the flow and melody of the music. Finally, the lyrics make you want to take a shower. Not just a cold shower, but the type with bleach and military-grade detergent to get that feeling of filth off you after you hear a man's prison thoughts put to some of the most out-of-date music you can imagine. Do you understand why there is a subsection called trashcore? Not just the terrible cringe-filled music, but also the people involved making the soundtrack to such outdated, shameless tracks, all copied off of better artists. It's shocking this album was eventually certified gold due in part to stream counts, but it also shocks me that so many people heard this album and then went, yes, I'd like to hear it again, and more from this group. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard. From what I'm told, it's not even the worst Falling in Reverse album, but I haven't heard them all, so I'll leave that argument up to you. But now we need to turn to a related conversation. We need to talk about Ronnie Radke and the toxicity he has brought to heavy music for years. Don't act like this is something worth debating either. Even the biggest diehards of Ronnie Radke know he's a character. The problem is the people who continuously defend the man every time he goes overboard online and threatens people with violence or goes on transphobic rants, and then chuckling about how cool and tough Ronnie is.
I don't think Motionless White is better than my band. I think Motionless White is just Breaking Benjamin for trans people.
Ronald the Clown does this not because of impulse or anger control, it's because the clown is desperate for attention. The man has gone after teenagers on TikTok just to dispute them because he has no control in some ways, and then brags about how much he's accomplished to random people on the internet, those of which no one asked how successful he currently is. His attention seeking knows no bounds, and it's not just online either. For well over a past decade, the clown has gone out of his way to get that attention, and one of the best ways to get attention is playing the victim. That's Ronnie's go-to move. A great example was at the Blue Ridge Rock Fest in 2021. A guy wore an anti-Ronnie Radke t-shirt. The older fellow stayed in place at a big festival, missing other bands, just to get Radke's attention. Yes, that man is a loser, but Ronald the Clown didn't handle it well once he saw it from the stage.
Where's the guy with the fuck Ronnie Radke shirt? I noticed that he saw me and then he pulled it down. You do not want the fucking smoke, homie. I will beat your fucking ass. This is not Twitter. How old are you? But you're like fucking 40 in the front row with a self-made fuck Ronnie Radke shirt? You are not married. Listen, man. I got my 8-year-old daughter standing right there, bro. What's your problem? You got a problem? What's your problem? I don't know who you are. Fight! You're a bitch! Fuck you later, homie! Piece of shit! Get motherfucker! I'm a good dude! You are misled, motherfucker, and you're too old to be here doing that shit! You should be fucking ashamed of yourself, man! I beat up people twice your size. I beat up people like dudes on his shoulders. I'm not playing with you. And if I won't do it, my dad's biker gang will, homeboy. You think I'm fucking playing? This is the reason I went to jail, because of people like him, man. I go to therapy, listen. I go to therapy to control my anger for people like this, man.
For a man who has done prison time and brags about all the people he's beaten up, I can't believe his big tough guy statement broke down to "I'll tell my dad on you." Get out of here. I don't care if your dad's in a biker gang. You, a father in your own way, and in front of your own children at that show, said you were going to tell your dad on a guy being mean to you. This is what people defend. This is the guy, the tough transphobe that goes after teenagers and then threatens to tell his dad when he gets angry. That's your man. It's also a problem that the fringe of scene music fans all support loyally to this man regardless of his actions because they like the music. They relate to it. Ew, which part so I know why to keep away from you? The man has said he's trying to improve every day, both as a person, as a musician, whatever. As a musician over the years, yeah, the song Popular Monster and under 4 minutes is wildly better than the entirety of The Drug in Me Is You. Night and day difference in instrumentals, lyrics, hooks, everything. But it's the blind loyalty to toxic behavior and past music that proves just how rotten part of the scene has become due to Radke. That's it. He's the reason. The man knows how to get attention and he's laughing about it. Ronald the Clown will go on horrific, vile rants online, then delete them all the next day because he's a coward, and then laugh about it later. The clown is also not apologetic about his actions. A great example being on laughing at the girl that was badly injured at a live show because of him when he was repeatedly throwing microphone stands into the crowd. What if that was his child that got their head split open at a show? Would he be laughing about it then? However, Ronald the Clown cannot think that way. It's not about other people, it's about him and his feelings and him being the victim and him getting attention. He will always be the one that's misunderstood and having people turn against him and how he is treated poorly. I also want to point out I'm not throwing out wild accusations on his behavior that hasn't been reported from Reddit threads or other social media antics. I don't have to. I've been showing definitive proof of his behavior, his own words, his own actions, his own mugshot. Do the diehards really think Ronnie Radke would care about them? Really? If so, why? Because you paid for a meet and greet? Newsflash, you are paying him to be nice. That's not the same. And now we should look at Ronald the Clown's latest target, LGBTQ people, especially trans people. Notice how I said people? As in, they are people? Apparently the clown is having issues understanding that. I would say that he is allegedly targeting trans people online, but I cannot say allegedly when there is more hard proof of him doing so. He even responded saying he is a transphobe when asked. To the defender saying he was being snarky or sarcastic, why would you ever say you were a transphobe if you were not one? What would you benefit from saying that? It's not even lame edgelord behavior. It's deep attention-seeking antics from a paper-thin-skinned musician. I mean, I've seen sensitive artists before, and I know it's cliche to call someone a snowflake now, but Ronnie Radke's a snowflake. Falling in Reverse can be described in many ways. Crashcore, incel rock, court-appointed visitation metal, house arrest core, but Falling in Reverse is also successful. And they are successful not because of the music, but because of the clown that's leading the band and making heavy music toxic. Whether it's attention-seeking antics through bragging about himself, playing the victim, or going and making transphobic statements or threatening violence, it doesn't matter. The man is an adult that refuses to apologize and doesn't think he'll have repercussions, and does not understand the consequences of his own actions. The clown is screaming about how evil cancel culture is, then screams about how no one can cancel him because he's too big, and then when Ronnie Radke is banned from social media platforms, he complains about how he's a victim. It's a sad, whiny, vicious cycle. Ronald the Clown also has some critics living so rent-free in his head that they are building apartment complexes in his attention-starved brain. Maybe that's why so many teenagers like Falling in Reverse. Ronnie Radke is a 13-year-old who wants attention and to be seen as tough. What he doesn't understand that angry tweets, calling out kids on TikTok, and making transphobic claims is not tough. It's pathetic. And again, he doesn't understand his actions have consequences. That being said, trans people, especially trans youth, have had an extremely difficult time in recent years due to online bullying from 13-year-olds like Ronald the Clown, and true prejudice and harassment from businesses to extreme right-wing government officials as well. Trans rights are human rights. Trans people are people. So to end this video in honor of Ronald the Clown, please notice the attached charity on this video for GLAAD. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation provides legal and medical resources to trans adults and youth, while also providing information with partners like the Trevor Project. Please donate to GLAAD if you can, so you can help combat transphobic attitudes. Remember that for every $1 donated to GLAAD, that's one transphobe being told to go screw themselves.